Welcome back to another video in a Who is Tasha Jackson series. Today we're going to be talking about how did I learn astrology? That is, of course, another lifelong learning that I have had. So going back to whenever I was a little girl, playing in the forest in the country in the middle of nowhere. I had the opportunity to think about things that other people, right? Like I wasn't really interested in TV, right? I wanted to be outside. I wanted to be exploring. I wanted to know what does the world do? What is it like? Why do things work the way that they work? I was a very inquisitive child. So I will tell you this about myself. I am an Aquarius sun. I am a Leo rising. My moon sign is in Sagittarius. My Mercury is in Capricorn. My Venus is in Pisces and my Mars is in Pisces. So I don't know if there's a more eclectic dynamic person combination than that. This is just my recipe, right? This is who I am. And so, the explorer part of me and the knowledge part of me, soaking up everything that I could. Of course, that's where all of that comes from. And so when I was a child and I was in the forest, my grandmother, she used to tell me, be home before it gets dark. Well, I had no idea what time it was ever. I would leave in the morning, I would eat my Cookie Crisp and I would run out into the forest and I would start playing. And then I would only go back whenever I was hungry. But a lot of times I wasn't hungry until, it was time, when it was getting dark and things like that. And so I actually learned how to tell time using the sun, which, interestingly, if you recall from my intro to spirituality video, that, for 20 years, I was a Muslim for 20 years. And, the phases of the sun are incredibly important for learning or for knowing whenever it is time to pray, but also it's incredibly important for the moon cycle as well, because the Islam runs on the lunar calendar. And so, so that was kind of my very first experience with learning how to tell time using the sun and knowing that whenever it's, the sun is right overhead, that's around noon time. And then, the sun, rising in the east and setting in the west, knowing those things from a very young age, because I'm very observant, right? And so just knowing the positioning of the sun, I could tell, okay, it's after lunchtime, or if the sun's getting ready to go down, I need to go home, right? Because I don't want to be in the forest whenever it's dark outside. But the benefit of living in the country is that whenever I would go outside at night, I had the whole entire sky that I was looking at. And so, as a first grader, second grader, you're in the country looking up at the sky and you're trying to figure out what are those lights in the sky? Where do they come from? What are those? Right. And then you learn that they're stars and you're like, well, what are stars? Where are they? As a child, these are some of the things that I would think about, because in the country, there's not really a lot else to do. And so, I didn't have friends to play with. And so, these were a lot of things, these musings were a lot of things that I was really left with thinking about. And so, that was kind of my foray. And so, fast forward to, through the end of the 80s, the early 90s, and everyone was, what is your sign? That became a really big thing. Everyone needed to know what their sun sign was, because that was the cool thing that was happening in pop culture at that time. And so, I was like, well, what is this? What is the sun sign? What does that mean? I'm an Aquarius. What does that mean? Who am I? How does that description define who I am? And, there's a lot more to it than that. Of course, like I just said, I listed all of my placements the most important placements for you. But you know, how did that impact who I was? And then I got to a point where I was able to start reading, okay, this is an Aquarius. And it's like, okay, intelligent and inventive or innovative and eccentric, and sometimes can be very cold and detached, and very biting and cutting. And whenever you speak with people, you can become very tactless in the way that you deliver the message, because you're very blunt, very much focused on the truth, all of these different things. And I was like, okay, well, I can get that. Okay. Yes. Check all of those boxes. And then you know middle school came, and then it was your compatibility. Now remember, this is before the internet. And so, there was no compatibility calculator, but one of the things that I was gifted was this little electronic journaling thing, and it had a compatibility quiz on there. So you put in your birthday, and then you put in your crush's birthday, and then it spits out if you're compatible or not. Now, as a 7th grader, 8th grader, middle schooler, let's just put in middle school, just in a middle schooler, of course, the guy that I had a crush on, like, are we compatible? Should I even ask him out? Would he even be interested in me? How, like, these are all things, like, why as a middle schooler, these are things I was thinking about, but it was. So, I put that little calculator in. I put in the calculations, and it came out, and it was like 4 out of 5 hearts or something like that. Anyways, he ended up becoming my boyfriend later, and we were middle school sweethearts. And then we actually stayed friends through like the last 25 years. And so, but not, just he has his life and I have my life now, but it's just, part of the story. And so, that was kind of my real first, like, what is there to this, right? What goes into these compatibility calculators? Because people are just putting in their sun signs, but it's way more than just that. We know that now, but whenever you're in middle school, or whenever astrology was kind of just becoming accepted in the 80s and the 90s, as something that was chic, or kind of exotic, there wasn't really that much known about it really then, even though astrology is one of the oldest sciences on the planet. Astrology is estimated to have been invented at like 30,000 BC. And it is based on cave paintings that they found. And I don't remember which country it is in. If I remember, or if I find the information, I will post that somewhere. But and so astrology and astronomy are some of the oldest sciences that are on record to have existed. And so, whenever I found that information out, whenever I was in high school, I was, really, very much, like, oh my gosh, like, I want to study one of the oldest sciences on the planet. How cool would that be? And so I really started to delve in, and I really started to learn more about my world, and looking at my world from a different perspective. And what is it, like your recipe, what is your makeup, what are some of these things that these personality traits, right? Because some people, they look at the description and they're like, that's not me at all, right? But what people don't understand is also that there is a spectrum, right? You have and I will have a course, a second I have a course out now, that's just about becoming a spiritual warrior. But I'm working on a second course that is healing with arts, and astrology is one of them. And so, whenever you're really looking at who you are, right, there's a spectrum, and you can fall at the lower end of the spectrum, or you can fall at the higher end of the spectrum, or you can fall in the middle. It just depends. It's person by person specific. And so you can embody some of the qualities on one end, and you can embody some of the qualities on the other end. There are times whenever, I very much exhibit some of the lower expressions of Aquarius, right? Like, I can be very cold, I can be very detached, I can be very unemotional, I can just all of a sudden flip a switch and my emotions are just off, right? That is something. But also having Pisces placements, for my Venus and my Mars, which is how you receive love and how you give love, right? I know that I can become a very emotional person, that I can feel things very deeply, right? And so knowing those also has helped me in my own spiritual journey and my self development, because now I understand the full range of emotions that I can express. Whereas I didn't have that capability before, because I didn't have the experiences that I need to open me up to that. And so that's another aspect of it too, is that, yeah, those may not be you now, but maybe in 10 years, those things may be you, because you're going to go through experiences that are going to teach you and train you on how to open up to those emotions, or how to manage those emotions in a different way that you're managing them now. And so um, I did take a hiatus. So whenever I was very religious, I did reject a lot of those ideas. And, I really took a time out from it. But then as I started to come out of orthodoxy, which will be another video, as I started to come out of orthodoxy, I really started to more wholeheartedly embrace a lot of the same concepts and ideas that I had learned early on about astrology. But then I started diving in even deeper whenever I started learning Eastern philosophy and Eastern medicine, because those philosophies are very much tied to esoteric science and looking at, elemental healing, for example. So I'll have a section that I've learned about elemental healing. Because again, all of these things that I have learned through my experiences, I just pass on to you all. So I'm very grateful for you all listening to my stories. But so now, I don't necessarily have a teacher, but there are some resources that I utilize in my life in order to understand where is where what trajectory, in a sense, can I put my life on, right? And so even at the making of this video, I'm at a really important juncture in my life of, I can go back to teaching, or I can take my teaching to the next level and I can expand what it is that I'm doing. And so I've chosen to expand. Now is the time to do that. And I don't want to say it's just that there are, the stars are aligned. I don't want to put it in those terms, right? Like, I don't want to reduce it down to its nuts and bolts of that, because it's so much more than that. It really is having that sense of inner knowing, and that inner sense of trust, and that inner sense of, this is the right thing that I'm doing for my life right now, based on my own definition of happiness and success. And, how have I overcome trials and tribulations in my life? What have the mountain peaks looked like? What have the bottom of the valley looked like? There's lots of decisions that I made that have put me to this point of, what do I do now? Where do I want to go now? Astrology is just a tool to help with that. Because at the end of the day, we all have free choice. We all have free will. We all say what it is that we want to do with our life. And, even if now was not the time for me to be, launching a new business, then it would not be the time. If I wasn't feeling it, I wouldn't be feeling it. And so you really have to learn how to trust yourself, how to listen to your gut, how to listen to your inner being, follow your intuition, those kinds of things in order to really help you to navigate your life. Again, astrology is just a tool to do that. So if you're looking for some resources, the people that I follow are Molly McCord, Nadia Shaw, Donna Stellhorn, Braca Goldsmith, and Annie Botticelli. All of those astrologers, and there are more. There's an astrologer, what's her name? Stormy something. She's a business astrologer. So there's different types of astrology. And so I mostly used astrology for personal improvement, more so than I did anything else, because that was what my goal was. My goal was to develop a strong sense of personal empowerment, and I wanted to transform my life, because I was tired of living my life the way that I had been living it. And so astrology gave me a way to experience life in a different way, in conjunction with all the other things that I was doing. And so, if you're interested in checking out any of those astrologers, they all have YouTube channels. So make sure that you, again, exercise your own free will, exercise your own ability to make decisions and choices for yourself, and really learn who you are. If you want to kind of follow what I did, learn who you are, and then who is it that you want to become. So if you need anything, you can reach me through naturallyinspiredmedia.com, through my contact page. I'm always looking forward to connecting with people, to inspire people, to educate people, to provide resources if you need it. If you have any specific questions, please reach me there, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hi. If you like the content that I create, please do make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And check out my website, naturallyinspiredmedia.com, and some of the other videos that I have produced here.